Chief Diaz, clearly there's a segment of our community that is very unhappy with him, these allegations.
The former police chief came out that he was gay.
It's somewhere people are trying to construe it as, oh, now he's using that he's gay as a defense against sexual harassment. And that's the part that got me thinking, like, you know what, that's bullshit. And so for someone in this point in their life and their career, particularly after what's been going on, to step up and say, this is who I am, this is my true, authentic self, to me, that's bravery. And that's where the conversation was for me.
Oh, and I can tell you this, the Chief Diaz today, most likely, go to Union, go to my Rainier Avenue South, go to McClellan, go to Oddfellow. Ain't nobody gonna treat him no different because it was on the news and said he was gay, because they never associated him with orientation. They associated him with his work to keep people safe, you know what I'm saying, to keep guns off the street and everything else. So I think it just depends on what layer you are in the layer of talking heads.
And welcome again to Unfiltered. I'm Enrique Cerna, along with Debora Juarez and Omari Salisbury. This is the day after the former police chief came out that he was gay, which was pretty shocking to me. I don't know about you two. Of course, we're kind of reeling from that, and also the issues regarding violent crime in our city and what was happening at Garfield High School. But before we get to all of that, I wanted to start with something positive, and that was an honor you got, Omari. Tell me about that. It happened at the Paramount Theater. I'm very proud of you, by the way.
Well, thank you. You know, it was a busy weekend. On Saturday, I was honored by BUILD, the Brothers United in Leadership Development, and they gave me a Fatherhood Award out at Axma Stage in White Center. It was really cool. This award kind of like uplifting our work with young people and community. Sunday, they're in the iconic Paramount Theater. They're on the main stage. The Song of Black Folks. They gave me an honor for social justice and activism and in our work, Converge Media's work in that field of uplifting voices in our community. And so I just put on a suit and everything.
I know, I saw. I mean, hey, you clean up really well. That's nice. No baseball hat, all of that. And
I just don't clean up often. And so when people do see me,
I don't think I've ever seen you in a suit.
I've seen him. I saw him in a tux.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, at the Emmys, you were tux, right? Yeah. But also that Social Justice Award was also, it's named after Lyle Quazim, who used to be head of DSHS in the state.
Lyle.
Still active in the community. So
he actually presented the award to me, which was
nice. Well, listen, I'm glad that you're getting some kudos. That's very important, but I'm very proud of you as well. So I wanted to start off with a positive because it's been an interesting time in this city. All right, so yesterday afternoon, this is the day after the radio interview that former police chief Adrian Diaz did with Jason Rantz of conservative talk show host, and he revealed that he was gay. I don't know about you guys. I was totally shocked by it all. How about you guys?
I wasn't shocked. We're a very progressive city. It was kind of like, and I think the thing that kind of bothered me from some of the things that were said to me last night and this morning is some people are trying to construe it as, oh, now he's using that he's gay as a defense against sexual harassment. And that's the part that got me thinking, like, you know what, that's bullshit. I'm just, okay, fine, you can have that opinion, but that's not what I got. And I listened to the interview 2 times last night because I really wanted to listen. And you know me, I'm a nerd, I take notes because I was just kind of following along. There's a lot of strength in bravery and being honest. And that's why there is, because it's hard to be honest and reveal your true self, particularly in front of everyone. And so, as I shared with you, I had a few, some communication with former Chief Diaz, and I do consider him a friend. But I commend anybody who could step into that light and reveal themselves. And I just felt empathy and humanity that if you have to hide yourself for 27 years, I mean, that must be painful. I erred on that side, not, oh, he's gay, shock. Oh, he's saying he's gay because it's a defense to sexual harassment. I just didn't go down that road. I just thought bigger. I just had a more open heart about it. So
Yeah, I did send him a text as well, and I said that, frankly, I think that took a lot of guts for him to do that, and to come out is in such a big way and during a tough time. I didn't think about all the other stuff. I think I was just thinking of him as a person and making that decision. So
let me add one thing I did share with him, and I meant it because I've been reading this book, and there's about bravery. And I shared with him that bravery often isn't an intellectual choice. It's more instinctual. And that's when you step up to protect yourself or others. And some of us have that, but I don't think anyone's born with that virtue. I think it has to be curated like any rare gem. And so for someone in this point in their life and their career, particularly after what's been going on, to step up and say, this is who I am, this is my true authentic self, to me, that's bravery. And that's where the conversation was for me.
yeah, Omari.
My first thoughts wasn't like, oh man, he's gay, is it this and that. My first thoughts was like, I'm like, man, I hope that his family isn't finding out first here on the radio. My thoughts were is like, man, this dude got his wife and kids and everything else, or whatever that situation looks at. But the fact that, like, he's gay is like, man, so, and it just kind of began and end there. And I got a unique relationship, if you want to call it that, with the Seattle Police Department. You know what I'm saying? I was me, a lot of other people, members of the media, were on the front end of police violence on a whole nother level. He was in command staff at that time. Chief Best was the chief. I see Chief Best all the time around the city. I see Chief Diaz a lot around the city. And, on the human level, it's a very, cordial relationship, as it's supposed to be. I'm my mama's son. But I will say this, is that somebody was asking me yesterday, well, man, are people, is it going to be different or treated different? And, I just try to pride myself on being fair. And, nobody's perfect. Everybody has their biases. But I will say this, is that Chief Diaz, clearly there's a segment of our community that is very unhappy with him, these allegations. There's also a segment that found a lot of value in the work and his commitment, especially in de-escalation around gun violence and things like that in the Central District and the South End of Seattle. And I can tell you this, the Chief Diaz today, most likely go to Union, go to my Rainier Avenue South, go to McClellan, go to Oddfellow. Ain't nobody gonna treat him no different because it was on the news and said he was gay, because they never associated him with orientation. They associated him with his work to keep people safe. You know what I'm saying? To keep guns off the street and everything else. So I think it just depends on what layer you are in the layer of talking heads. You see what I'm saying? If you're at the big layer of talking heads, then it's whatever. If you're on the street level, and it might have been a Chief Diaz in one of his programs that ensured that your son or your daughter made it home safe from school without getting shot at, or one of these things where they intervene so a retaliation didn't happen around a murder, or one of these things that got guns out of your neighborhood, you probably don't care if he was green and a Martian, because you felt it affected safety. And so, I think the different layers of Seattle community, from the street level to the high level talking heads, we're all going to relate differently, especially on if they were impacted directly by Chief Diaz or not, good or bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out, of course, it's a bit of a shock. Didn't expect it. But as you pointed out, Omari, earlier before we started rolling here, is that Seattle is a very gay city. And so what?
Yeah, we were sitting here in the office, and I was like, man, there's a lot of cities in America where this would just really be like groundbreaking, shocking, everything else. But it's kind of like, man, okay, and and again, it kind of comes down to like, I don't know. I'm just like, yeah, and I mean, he's gay. Like, so what? You know what I'm saying?
So the other thing is too, when we were talking, is that when people who are other parts of this country talk to me about Seattle, I'm like, look, Seattle doesn't care if you're gay, if you're fluid, what you're pro. I mean, we're good there. What people care about in Seattle is recycling, dog parks, sidewalks, bicycle trails. They will fight tooth and nail. They'll save a tree. A whole neighborhood will come out and save some goofy tree, which, by the way, was not culturally modified, but that's another show. That's the stuff this city gets all riled up about. Not that you're gay. So,
I mean, that's true. Especially these bike lanes, 100%.
When people go, and God forbid you have a pickleball court, they will lose their minds over a pickleball court. So, okay, chief of police is gay. Okay, and
we move on.
If people were going to link this to harassment, to the harassment suits and everything else, I think that they're probably not looking back far enough on the timeline. I think the one thing to talk about is, I think there was the whole thing of rumors of him hiring somebody, but hiring his girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And there was all that was the big thing then. And so I think that when people are sitting here being like, oh, well, hey, he's gay now, that means he couldn't have harassed people or this and that. I don't know if I was one of these people that wanted to connect all these dots. I don't think that's the dot you connect that to. I think the dot that you might connect that to is when there was that big campaign in media and they came out. And remember, it was like, oh, well, he's hired his girlfriend, and his girlfriend gets special benefits and everything else. And lo and behold, this man was gay the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And people, it was very reputable news sources, nationally recognized, awarded news sources who went all in saying that, that was his girlfriend and everything else. And sources tell us that the girlfriend gets special treatment and blah, blah, blah. I think if that's a dot to connect with all this coming out, that's the dot there, and not about any of these other litigation that he's facing right now.
Yeah. Like what you said, Omari, I think we talked a little bit about some people's rush to judgment. And, well, we know how we feel about what media doesn't, which I don't think is, and I hate to use the term fair and balanced, but, we do have a real left-wing media here, and everyone is in a rush to have the right slogan or the right, politically correct response or stance to take. And sometimes what gets lost in there beyond the political ideology is that these are real people who have lives. And, there are certain news sources I don't listen to anymore. I quit 4 years ago.
Right or left, that is an issue. And I think you got to report the facts or what you really know. It'll be interesting to see what plays out of that down the road here. And I know that if legal action that he might take, who knows?
Well, no one's going to come forward and apologize.
Yeah, they'll fight that. So, okay, so this is what has happened there. I'm sure we're going to hear more about the investigation from the city and all of these things. One thing I did find it interesting that where he made this announcement with a conservative radio talk show host, Jason Rantz. I get it. He's got a big, probably a good size audience, so that's a way to do that. But I just thought that kind of juxtaposition of that was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask Omari and you guys what you thought about that, because of all places, that I don't know the reasoning there or what the point was, but I found that interesting as well. I never really listened to Jason Rantz.
Me either, to be honest with you.
And not because I'm against him or anyone else. It's just not in my feed. And, sometimes people will forward stuff, but I don't really pay attention. But I did, like I said, listen to it. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting.
I thought the interview that Jason Rantz did was fine. It was good. I thought he did. It was fair. I did not. I only know a bit about his background and criticisms and things like that. But it was pretty straightforward. And so I was not surprised by that.
One thing I did appreciate about Jason's interview is I liked how he took a beat, and Omari does this too in interviews, how he took a beat to let the person, when he would say, well, how so? Kind of like a leading, not juxtaposing it or putting a qualifier in front of it, but allowing that person to tell their story in the rhythm in which they wanted to share it, like how so, and then what happened. I appreciated that. And I don't know, I'm not a journalist, but I did appreciate listening to it that way.
He listened. That's a big thing about it.
Yeah.
You got to listen.
Exactly. So, I mean, as far as the chief going on Jason Rantz, I think that, from just like a media strategy angle here is one, Rantz has a very big audience and across several markets. Rantz reoccurs on Fox News, so this might very well be a story that, like, the next time that he's on Fox News can also talk about, which also gives more visibility to the case, gives more visibility to, to the chief, his name, and whatever direction or narrative that he might be pushing next. You don't know. They're connected there with my Northwest, you know what I'm saying? So there's your online side as well. Part of Columbia, the broadcasting group is also in that house, is Cairo FM. So they got the first dibs on all the sound bites and all those kind of things. So just the media strategy, I would be like, okay. And also there's very few places that you can go live. You have to go on radio because TV is not going to give you that much time. And so the only other place that you're really going to go that's going to get that much time to broadcast with an audience is probably over there to Jason Rantz or into that radio group over there or over in the KOW. And of course, we know the KOW, a lot of the articles that's come out about the chief have been over at KOW. So I don't think for an extended conversation that there isn't like, we're like, oh, how can you do this and that? Even if we went to any of the TV stations, they would have chopped it down to 4 minutes and then be like, hey, you can go online and see the full thing. So it presented an opportunity and a live platform for an extended conversation to be able to happen. And by the way, there's only a few platforms that can do that in the whole city, and that's the radio stations of people like Converge. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Where you can go for an extended live conversation, unedited, and everything else. On top of that, Jason Rantz is a big supporter of the Seattle Police Department, the police guild, the police union, and everything else. So I think that if I was Chief Diaz and I was police looking at whatever, communicating, then that just seems like the best possible natural situation to be able to communicate that. You know what I'm saying? It is I don't know. They're just an outsider looking in, but you ask the question, why would somebody go there? I'm looking at all the different attributes that they have in that radio group.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me. It makes total sense to me in what everything that you just said. So that it was the case. All right, let's turn the page here and move on. What we would have talked about when we actually were going to record last week, and we did not because so much going on. The shooting, another shooting yet, and at Garfield, outside Garfield High School. Omari, your community, and I know this hit you hard, really hard. How are you doing about that?
So, the shooting up in Garfield that took to the life of Amarr Murphy-Paine, high school junior there at Garfield. I mean, it's just tragic, and there's something that I wrote yesterday that is generational, unfortunately. I talked about, definitely not trying to make this about me, but I talked about in my senior year, one of our classmates, June Walker, she was murdered a few blocks off of campus. It was her and 3 other people, quadruple homicide, and she was pregnant. We're high schoolers, you see what I'm saying? And I remember being in senior year, mourning the loss of one of our young bulldogs. And so being there, it was a Purple and White Day. I've gone to everything for the most part. I went to the candlelight vigil. I went to the welcome back of the students. And then, of course, we covered the Unity Walk, and then I was there Purple and White Day. And being there at Purple and White Day, I think was probably the most emotional thus far outside of the vigil, when, of course, the parents spoke, and that's the only time they've really spoken in a public place. But this is it's ongoing shit. It's all bad. And, there's lots of things, it's just crazy whenever something happens, man, because you get the people who show up who got an agenda, you get the people who show up who want to point fingers, you get the people, no one ever listens to the kids, you know what I'm saying, what they actually want and what they need. And at the end of the day, the cameras turn off the lights and then they go away until it's the next tragedy. And for us, we just want to make a commitment, or recommit ourselves to being present as much as we can, not only at Garfield, but, around youth, but it's only so much we can,
You're right. What you talk to young people, what did they say to you?
Well, at Garfield specifically, it's an ongoing issue of safety. You got to remember, it's 3 months ago that there was a shooting there at the bus stop where
right.
A student was shot. And there's been quite a few shootings just in the general vicinity, murders just in the general vicinity of the school. So it's like it's safe. Like here's something that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of these students, they want to be safe. And so there's a divide in Seattle public schools and even young people, right? So last year, me and Cesar Canizales actually led the charge on that. Me and Cesar covered a lot of stuff at Rainier Beach talking to the kids. The kids at Rainier Beach were saying, like, listen, man, we want the police here at our school. We want to be able to walk across the street to the store and not get shot. We want this and that. We want security and everything else. When you talk to a lot of the kids at Garfield, they're saying the same thing. When you go north of the 520, it's like no police in school. Keep the police away from school. This and that, and everything else. But when you're talking to these kids that are dying there and getting shot and everything else, they want you to throw every solution you got at keeping them safe. But what you hear, a lot of the overarching narrative, what comes out is, no police in school, no SROs, no this and that. But when you talk to these kids who find it challenging to walk home, they're telling you something different. And so, even geographically here in the city of Seattle, students are saying something different and some parents are saying something different. But these kids at Garfield and Rainier Beach, who we talked to extensively, the majority of them are like, look, man, we just want to be safe.
Yeah. So if I can just add, first from a micro level and then a macro level, but the micro level about what Omari is saying is the disagreement and intense conversation I had with my colleagues 4 years ago during Defund the Police, where I shared, back when Omari had interviewed me, that these weren't these children getting shot. And when the Seattle Public School Board made the decision with their resolution to get rid of the SROs, and when my colleagues, voted or whatever to defund the police 50%, the same analogy and the same argument that I kept putting forward was, fine, but you need a plan, not a percentage. You need something in its place if you take out the SRO, school board, Seattle City Council, whomever. The ideology, the template of just placing it in a problem or a city, the ideology is insane, because these are real human beings and lives in communities that are going to be upset. You can't keep using Seattle as a petri dish. We're not Portland. We're not San Francisco. We're not Minneapolis. So yes, have diversion strategies, have upstream community programs, do all that, and empower our children, our family, our communities to have SROs or whatever you want to call them, because they're not there to arrest kids. They're there to protect our children, to know our children, to know their parents. And any counselor at any school who knows these kids, they know them and they know when something's up. When we had our shooting at Ingram about 3 years ago, we went on the walk, we put money in the budget for mental health. But the thing I heard was, what I want to enlarge kind of what Omari said, amplify what Omari said, is that there were no adults on the ground that knew these children to know if something was up. Wasn't. And the removal of the officers takes away eyes and ears of people who know these kids who are coming in and out, and also people that don't belong on campus and don't belong in the parking lot. And community is a circle. And the center of that circle is the child. And it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility. Violence is our problem. And I don't know, sometimes it's almost like there's no focus to the inner circle, that child in the middle. It's not, it's more outward looking. And I guess maybe I'm getting too philosophical, but I don't see I think people use the word community a lot. Mm-hmm. And I want to know, if we took that apart, what that actually means. And I think SROs were part of the community. And I think that got plugged and there was a disconnect.
It was the kids, they just want to be safe. And like one of the discussions was like, in certain places like Chicago, which is very violent, where police ain't there, they've been replaced by the Fruit of Islam. You know, they're the security for the Nation of Islam. You see what I'm saying? And get the same results. You know, no one's messing with the FOI or whatever because of Spectrum or however it is. But like where the police aren't present, it's fine. Now here's a community organization disrespected in the neighborhood, everything else, the FOI that's there. They don't carry guns or anything. You know, brothers is out there in the suits. But one form of protection was replaced by another form of protection. Guys with badges and guns were replaced by community members or whatever. But there was a replacement. You see what I'm saying? And so it goes back to, I think the thing is like, yeah, we can't experiment on our young people. We need to, if the police is not the answer, and the police definitely ain't always the answer. If the police is not the answer, okay. But what's the answer? And how are we going to keep our kids safe? Kids are open. They're innovative. They're open for whatever. You see what I'm saying? And I mean, from the neighborhood side, it's a call out for people to come and activate around the campus, especially around after school and everything else. That's something that like parents and community members can do, right? Just the activation. But there's also another layer that needs to be there. And, you know, in some of these schools, there are people that are on campus. They're there and, you know, in different situations. And some of these different organizations might have saved. The thing is, we can't tally the shootings that didn't happen, or we can't tally the retaliations that didn't happen. The scorecard, unfortunately, is only shots fired or, you know, somebody getting killed. So there are people that are there in schools and they're doing the work, but man, there's a bigger overarching issue around security and the feeling safe there in the schools. And almost any school you go to in Seattle, they'll tell you that they feel they're being let down.
Did we learn that there was is it a 16% increase in shootings this year? I remember reading that somewhere, 16% increase in shootings.
I would not be surprised. I don't know about that stat, but...
Well, I can say this. I'm not sure. What I can do is, because it's very clear in my memory, because I asked Mayor Harrell about it. As a matter of fact, the day that Chief Diaz was replaced by Chief Rohr, he said that year to date, that shootings are down 44%. That's what he said there in the press conference there that day. And so overall homicides right now this year are actually down compared to last year. Now shots fired might definitely be up.
Yeah. I'm thinking that as opposed to homicides.
So now school is out and okay, there'll be several months before they go back. And then what? I mean, what happens in the meantime?
Well, I thought there were supposed to be restorative justice folks out there and all these groups that we funded or the city funded to work with community and children. And I'm not going to disparage any group because I don't know what's working and what's not. Omari, you may have a better handle on that than me. I just keep going back to the focus should be inward looking at children and their safety, not our political ideology and what we believe how things should be. Yes, we should always strive for that, but, you know, you can't let perfection get in the way of, you know, progress.
Let's start here. One, a majority of funding is all put into intervention, which is right now. And I'm not saying they should be funded less, but every time I talk, I'm like, man, we need to get in the time machine. We need engagement with these 8-year-olds right now. So when they're 18, there's no way they're ever thinking about picking up a gun. You know, I mean, some of our best ground zero programs for prevention are the ones that are begging for funds. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got things like, man, like this boxing gym is a really good place. You know what I'm saying? Guys got aggression, they want to be whatever, da 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 da. It's the thing. It's like it's a lot of the boxing gyms. Just an example. Man, they can hardly pay their rent. Let's get caught because the kids ain't got no money. And if you own a gym and this kid could be in there practicing a box, or he could be out there in the streets doing some other stuff, whether he got money or not, you're going to be like, come on, you can't sustain a business like that. You know what I'm saying? But some of these guys have been here for decades, keeping kids off the street. These people are begging for money, little league programs, music programs, all these things that are out there that are shown decade after decade to keep our young people engaged in whatever it is. Africatown has a coding program, their coding boot camp. How can we keep kids coding? So whether it's coding, whether it's sports, whether it's art, these programs are there, but they're woefully underfunded. You know what I'm saying? And they could be doing a lot of work, but they don't get none of the funding because a lot of the money, people are forced to make a decision. Are we going to put this money in intervention right now because these guys are killing each other? What probably should put it. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a but instead of an and. And so our pipeline, we never really hit that upstream we talk about. We get it. We sprinkle things upstream, but we ain't never built a dam. You see what I'm saying? We've never, you know what I'm saying? And even with that, we've just built, if we're building a dam right now, we've just built a little coffer dam. You know what I'm saying? We ain't made no real construction and inroads of being like, man, how are we going to draw a line and say, these 8-year-olds, these 10-year-olds, we're going to make impactful change in their life. And it's great if they got a family structure at home, God bless them. But we know that we got thousands of kids, Seattle Public School, they're in transitional housing, they're moving all around, people with no parents, X, Y, and Z. How can we draw the line there? Because if the line is continuously drawn when bodies drop, we'll never fix the problem.
We have to own it. When you go searching for the truth, you have to own what you find. And if we find that parents aren't there, the schools aren't there, counselors aren't there, tribal council isn't funding it, that's on us. So I understand, and I don't want to, it's like anytime I've had these conversations and Omari, it's almost like if you talk about personal responsibility.
No, that's the elephant in the room. So this is what I wanted to get to, though. The one thing, right? The one thing that nobody wants to talk about. And when I talked there at the King County's Gun Violence Prevention and Lumen Field the same day of the shooting, this young man got shot before we went on stage. And by the time we were off stage, they told us that he had passed away. And then we rushed up there to the Central District. One thing I said, they said, what can we do here in this room? I said, you guys need to get involved in community. This change needs to start with us. There's a preacher out there, Dr. Sears. And actually, if you guys saw the video that I sent you from Purple and White Day, he's in there talking. But it's about accountability in our community. Because you know what? We talk about every single thing outside of people knowing. I said, we got so many parents. Oh, I forgot. I got to keep it mellow with my mic. We got so many parents who will talk about their kid got suspended, but they haven't never visited the school, not even on Zoom. They ain't never talked to the teacher. They ain't never checked the homework. They ain't never fought. And some parents, I mean, we got issues in our community. But if that's what's happening, we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that, hey, our community, we're falling through it. The one thing I was saying, if you know somebody ain't all the way there with their kids, we need to be all the way there with their kids. We can't have this conversation about disrupting gun violence and issues in our community and not hold the community itself responsible and accountable for some of the outcomes that we're having here.
We don't. But Omari, you brought this up last time we talked.
Yeah.
And you're like, where are your kids?
And is it like something you can't bring up because nobody wants to hear it, or what?
They think immediately if you say personal responsibility, personal accountability, where are your kids? Then all of a sudden you're bigoted, you're a racist, you're blaming the parent. No, I just want an honest discussion before a kid, like Omari saying, an 8 or a 10-year-old finds themselves in despair and sees no hope or no light. So by the time they're 15, 16, 17, they're picking up a gun and they're robbing a convenience store, regardless of their color. We've all had to, and they're difficult conversations. And this is what drives me crazy about the far crazy liberal left, where you can't even bring up issues that have to do difficult subjects about race and community and what our responsibility is as parents, as neighbors, all of that. And so I used to be a social worker before I went to law school. And my job in the Child Welfare Act and with the state was sometimes having to take children away from parents that were being good parents. Now, did I announce that? Was I proud of that? No. But my client was the best interest and welfare of that baby, that child. And if mom and dad can't take care of that baby, I'm going to find a Native American family or extended family that will. And those are hard conversations to have because you know what? You have to be accountable. You have to say what you haven't done. And people want to fall back on, well, it's race, it's poverty, it's systemic, blah, 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 blah.
And it's criticizing your community, which, again. So, Omari, when you bring up stuff like this, we've talked about this before. Do you get a backlash?
No, because, after the conference, people who were quiet or maybe a little quiet, they all came to me, thank you for saying that. Thank you. I got so many thank yous. There's a few people I bumped into since, like at Garfield. I heard you down there, brother. Thank you so much. Because they know, man, there's some of these kids we've abdicated we're abdicating our responsibility to our kids to the state. My mama used to say when I was little, she was always saying, she was like, man, if she would tell parents, if you don't have time for your kids, the King County Sheriff does. And you got to think about that. If you don't have no time for your kids, the Department of Corrections does. Now, I know my community. I know some people struggling that, and I'm not going to buy into this bullshit that, everybody black is struggling and all this and that. And this is what we need to understand. We need to understand that admissions is at an all-time high. There's 112 historically black universities in America. There's a whole segment of black people out here who are thriving and who are doing well. And there's so many students, black students and other students who went to Garfield. They're going to leave. They're going to college next year. They're going on their crafts and trades and everything else. But sometimes we get so focused in the believing that we are in totality the worst off of us. That's a segment of our population right now who's struggling. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And when we look at it, we need to be able to address that. We got to talk to it. We need to be able to tell the truth to each other. Now, do we need to go and tell the truth when the big cameras and the news show up? Well, this and that. Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? That's not their business. It's the trust level with all these things. But in these rooms that we're in, we need to be able to be like, hey, man, you know what? We are failing our kids. How can we do this and that? What can we do? Let's do everything that we can. It's not the state's job to raise our kids. If we leave it to the state to raise our kids, the state is going to incarcerate our kids. You see what I'm saying? That the biggest break to that pipeline starts with us. Not all parents are in the situation to be this amazing parent. We understand. Now let's find a way to put supportive care around that. This is where the village comes together. City Hall, policymakers, people down there. They need to stop talking to these old ass people, even like me, and talk to these young people most impacted, and not the men. They need to go and talk to these people, talk to these kids who try to were like, man, Amarr, calling his name, who are sitting there. Talk to these people who are sitting there traumatized. Talk to these young people. Stop talking to these old ass people who sit there and shuck and jive in front of the camera and everything else. If City Hall wants to make a difference, they really, man, stop this shit, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not hard to get these young people in the room and for them to open up and to tell you what's up. You don't need no cameras in there. You don't need if you really want to learn, I challenge the city council. I challenge policymakers. I challenge people. Talk to the people most impacted. Talk to the kids scared to walk home from school because this, and that happens. Talk to the people who witnessed this trauma. Talk to these people who've lost loved ones. But until they have a will to really speak, don't talk to the advocates of this, and that. Go to the source. There's a saying when I lived in Tanzania, don't talk to the dog, talk to the dog owner. Go directly to the source, and then you'll find the answers, and then you'll make policy, because your policy will be crafted and informed by those most impacted directly from them. But as long as there's this third-party system of this, and that, and everything else, then, man, our youth are not being heard. These children, these young adults are not being heard by the people most empowered to be able to make change and implementation around policy.
Omari, one question I want to ask you, since you have been out there a lot in the neighborhood and at Garfield talking to the kids, do they know who the young person was that shot Amarr?
I'm sure a lot do. And that's a whole nother trauma. Was it some random person who was just X, Y, and Z and everything else? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's why I don't care what you call them, SRO, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so and I just want to strangle people say, throwing more officers isn't going to SRO wouldn't have stopped the shooting. No, that's not what we're saying. I'm saying use every tool you have. You need a deterrent factor. You need someone on the ground who knows who belongs there and who doesn't, who listens to the chatter amongst kids. As Omari said, these things aren't random. Someone just didn't show up in the parking lot and shoot a gun. There's some relationships going on there. That's what we need to have to happen. So when people start with their, defund the police, take out the SRO, police are this. I'm not saying throw police officers in there to police the children. I'm saying put in whomever, whatever you want to call them, community service, SRO, to have the deterrent factor, to be our eyes and ears, and to be able to report back to parents, the community, Seattle City Council. These are what our kids need. Okay? Is it participatory budgeting to the tune of $30 million? I'm just going to be snarky here. I don't think so. I don't. And those of us who grew up, and I did, on a reservation in a poor community, we needed things like the Boys and Girls Club. We needed our powwows, our cultural activities. We needed the tribe. We needed our tribal support. We had aunties and uncles and everyone who would pull us up short if they saw us misbehaving. People were responsible for other people's children. Just common sense stuff. And when you start marginalizing us and treating people of color like we're infants and we don't know any better, that's when I get angry. That's when I'm like, this is bullshit. Stop. And one thing Seattle does need, and I talked to Omari about this before, and I think I've shared it with you and had conversations, I really think that Seattle needs an HBCU, because I think you need a centralized brick and mortar place of Black brilliance that is drawing in kids who are looking and saying, I can go to college and I want to go to this school because they cater and they understand my community where I come from and will teach to that. Seattle does not have an HBCU, and maybe someday they will. I know that sounds kind of wonky and silly in some ways, but I know that when our reservation, and then now it's everywhere, was one of the first reservations to have a college, that changed the dynamics, because all of a sudden people are saying, well, we have a college, Blackfeet Community College. Now it's Blackfeet College. That provided hope. That was a brick and mortar building, and now it's beautiful and it's bigger and it's more funded. Everyone is expected to go to college. That's brick and mortar. That's what that represents in a community. Not another social person, not a safe injection site, not another, navigator system. I mean, that all comes from a think tank of crazy left that believes this progressive attitude that somehow we can't take care of ourselves, take care of our children. But there's one kernel here that has to be expressed, and that is, if you have no jobs, you have poverty, then you have no hope. And you know what that equals? Crime. Zero. If all you have is liquor stores and, pawn shops, as we saw in communities, then that's all you got. So that's why you've seen me as a leader, and before I was even elected, I put so much emphasis beyond not just building casinos, but building economic vitality in a community where people have jobs and they have hope and they have the opportunity to move up and gain wealth and legacy. And I wish our leaders would think that way instead of infantizing us. That's what drives me insane. And I have a lot of friends that are judges, a lot of, Black women that are good friends of mine. I went to law school that are judges. And when we're offline, those are the things we talk about. This is what we need. Education is the equalizer. Brick and mortar jobs is the equalizer. And I don't know how many times I just got to the point where these people are they're drowning in this white liberal guilt, and they need absolution. And they think that if they read, whatever is the newest book out that talks about all of this, white fragility, whatever. It's like, great, go ahead and write all that stuff. But at the end of the day, your kids aren't getting shot.
All right. Before we go, let's talk whales and the Makah Tribe getting they got NOAA saying the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration giving them the okay to hunt gray whales. So
hold on, and we've got a lawyer here who did all of this stuff, but I think that you worded that incorrectly there, Mr. Cerna.
okay, how do I need to do that?
To honor a treaty that was written over 100 years ago, and NOAA is being forced to honor a treaty that was written between the United States government and the Makah Nation. Now,
I stand corrected.
Yeah, nobody gave us anything with them treaties. Those are exchanged to secure rights of. So when I was listening to the news, they're like, oh, they just granted the Makah assholes. They have a treaty from 1855, law of the land, shut the hell up. They're going out there. And I remember when they did the first hunt, was it 99?
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody, Sea Shepherd was out there, and Governor Locke had decided to call the National Guard. And it was just, everyone was mad, and PETA was mad, and the tribes are like, this is a treaty right, it's the law of the land, we have to fight with you people to get out there. People were on their boats, and then, kind of, in the tribal people, I have to laugh because I actually have this t-shirt somewhere, but they did have a funny t-shirt that didn't say Free Willy, it said Eat Willy, and that pissed everyone off. And, but going back to what you said, every time I hear the news on the Makah, they keep using the verbiage wrong, like they gave them the right. No,
right. Okay,
that's what a treaty is. It's consensus. You give up stuff, you get stuff.
I stand corrected. I screwed up. I'm sorry.
In 1999, now I know that you'll correct me, but in 1999, around the Makah hunt, which my mama went to support the Makah Nation, in 1999 was the first time that the government of the state of Washington deployed the National Guard on the side to enforce a treaty right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the treaty right was enforced. This was the first time the National Guard was called out really in favor of Native people or Native Americans to make sure that their treaty right was enforced.
You know what, Omari? I told you that because I was, okay.
Oh, now you told me.
That because I was in the room. I know the same a book. I was in the room on the phone with the chair of Makah, with the National Guard and Governor Locke, and that was one of those moments where I thought, "Holy shit, this is really my job. People are listening to me." Do we call out the National Guard? And that's why I always commended Governor Locke for being the first governor to call out the National Guard to protect Native people and their treaty rights. Because before that, with the fish wars, they were called out to shoot at and fish and wildlife, to arrest and hit Indians over there
to beat them up. Yeah.
So this was like a big thing in Indian country, and I mean, Governor Locke was given so many accolades for that. But I was actually in the room, and I was on the phone with the chair and his brother and Auntie Julie, and I look back on it now, and I was just so honored that I could have that moment that I was involved in that decision.
So the Makahs getting this opportunity or getting this treaty right,
exercising their treaty
right. Okay,
their treaty rights.
All right. Yes, sir.
Come on now, get it right.
Let me spit it out. But in doing this, is this just fighting for the fact that we had a treaty, and making clear that they have that opportunity because of the treaty?
No. It's ceremonial. Do you know how many Christmas trees and turkeys we kill every year for ceremony? Food is important. It's connected to soul. It's connected to who we are. And people need to realize, even at the time and now, more gray whales die than the tribes would ever take. First of all, I remember these stats. I can't remember now. I'm too old now. But I remember the day I had to fight with all these environmental groups. Like something like 20 gray whales die a year, just die. And the Makahs are taking one, and they haven't had a hunt since 1919. So calm down. Number two, the Makahs inextricably, and I did this when I was second chair in USV Washington and the shellfish rights and treaty rights. It was so hard getting white people to understand, unless it was their own culture, like I'd have to bring up the Christmas tree or the turkey analogy, even though I believe ours is different in a sense, is that food, ceremony, and people are intertwined. And every culture has its thing, but this was so important to the Makah people in 1855 during the negotiations of the Stevens Treaty and the other 6 treaties where they secured their fishing rights in their usual custom areas, No one gave it to us. We made some concessions in exchange for to secure the right of. And no, I don't think they're just going out there to, thumb their nose or because we can. It's important for their culture 100 years from now to be Makah. That is who it is to be Makah. That is the only treaty in the country that has a whaling clause. So how important was it to the elders and the leaders in 1855? That gives you an idea. That's how important it was. It's like, I can think of a chief and I cannot think of his last name. And I'll be really quick because I think, and I shared this with somebody else. Red Elk. When they were doing negotiations for treaties with the Sioux Nation, and I'm sure somebody will catch me if I'm wrong here, but I remember what brought me to tears is when Red Elk was negotiating with the federal government when they're putting their people on reservations, but they're trying to negotiate away the Black Hills. But one of the things when they were negotiating land, one of the last lines in the negotiation transcripts is he wanted to secure salt and pepper for the old ones. So these are people back then thinking of the most, which we would see as minute, but for them, think of it, these people are being killed left and right, and he's trying to negotiate a treaty and a land base so his people continue to hunt and live, and he's thinking about the elders and that they need to make sure that they have salt and pepper. For some reason, that point just made me cry, because I start thinking about my own ancestors who secured treaties for the Blackfeet Nation. The incredible duress they were under. 4 interpreters, from sign language to French to English to Blackfeet or Sioux or whatever. And people, if they understood how delicate and how difficult and how emotional these treaty negotiations were, I think they would think differently about the Makah and them exercising their right to whale.
All right. I'll say this real quick, is that we rocking with the Makah. I mean, unequivocal. Like, man, this is their right. And, man, for a country that had a history of not acknowledging rights and all these other things, man, God bless the Makah. You know what I'm saying? Go get that well. Bring me back some blubber.
I'll bring you back some. They promised me some. Bring me back some blubber.
And in a time when there's this effort to whitewash everything, then right on. All right. Okay, and
right on.
Thank you for schooling me. All right. Okay. We'll talk more next time. All right.